see it now?
Is that Bernie? Do a little Bernie hug.
All right, you guys should see it on the YouTube channel, guys. Sorry about that, Julio, man.
So we're live on YouTube.
Yeah, we're live right now on YouTube, guys.
All right, here we go. Let's just. What are you doing?
I owe you beer, Julio.
That's okay. We can try it some other time. More advanced. It happens. Don't worry about it.
Members of Congress.
Oh, here we go.
High privilege and distinct honor to present to you the President of the United States.
Woo!
Yeah!
Thank you.
With the First Lady.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good to be back.
Wait, it's the first time you're ever speaking. Is it the first time he's ever speaking to Congress? How can he be back?
Well, from that,
Maybe he
It's good
may.
to be almost home.
Oh, back to
Down
Congress.
the
Got it.
hall. Anyway, thank you all. Madam Speaker, Madam Vice President. No president has ever said those words from this podium. No president has ever said those words. And it's about
cool.
time.
Like,
That's
yay
cool,
me.
moment.
You know?
he's really kicking it off with some feel good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, let's see.
That was a good moment.
Here's Doug.
First Lady, I'm her husband. Second Gentleman,
Oh, there he
Chief
is.
Justice. Members of the United States Congress and the Cabinet, distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. While the setting tonight is familiar, this gathering is just a little bit different. A reminder of the extraordinary times we're in. Throughout our history, presidents have come to this chamber to speak to Congress, to the nation, and to the world, to declare war, to celebrate peace, to announce new plans and possibilities. Tonight, I come to talk about crisis and opportunity, about
Well, welcome to
rebuilding
Meet
the
La Prensa.
nation, revitalizing our democracy, and winning the future for America.
Okay.
I stand here tonight, one day shy of the 100th day of my administration. 100 days since I took the oath of office and lifted my hand off our family Bible and inherited a nation, we all did, that was in crisis. The worst pandemic in a century. The worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. The worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. Now, after just 100 days, I can report to the nation, America is on the move again.
Wow, he went there with the introduction.
Turning peril into possibility, crisis to opportunity, setbacks into strength. We all know life can knock us down, but in America, we never, ever, ever stay down. Americans always get up. Today, that's what we're doing. America's rising anew, choosing hope over fear, truth over lies, and light over darkness. After
Science.
100 days of rescue and renewal, America is ready for a takeoff, in my view. We're working again, dreaming again, discovering again, and leading the world again. We have shown each other and the world that there's no quit in America, none. 100 days ago, America's house was on fire. We had to act. And thanks to the extraordinary leadership of Speaker Pelosi Majority Leader Schumer, and the overwhelming support of the American people, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, we did act.
But not
Together, we
Republicans
passed
in the
the
House
American Rescue
or in
Plan,
Congress.
one of
That's
the most
interesting.
consequential rescue packages in American history. We're already seeing the results. We're already seeing the results.
Mitch is not clapping.
After I promised we'd get 100 million
Mitch
COVID-19
McConnell wouldn't even
vaccine
talk to
shots
Latino
in people's
rebels.
arms
What's
in
wrong with
100
that guy?
days. We will have provided over
stay on
220
here,
million
man.
COVID shots in those 100 days. Thanks to all the help of all of you. We're marshaling, with your help, everyone's help, we're marshaling every federal resource. We've gotten vaccines to nearly 40,000 pharmacies and over 700 community health centers where the poorest of the poor can be reached. We're setting up community vaccination sites, developing mobile units to get to hard-to-reach communities. Today, 90% of Americans now live within 5 miles of a vaccination site. Everyone over the age of 16, everyone is now eligible to get vaccinated right now, right away. Go get vaccinated, America. Go and get the vaccination. They're available. You're eligible now.
Oh, Ted Cruz a little clapping. Little Ted Cruz clapping there.
When I was sworn in on January 20th, less than 1% of the seniors in
Ted Cruz
America were
talked
fully
to
vaccinated
Latino
against
rebels.
COVID-19.
Oh, no, I know that,
He
but
didn't
I'm
make
just saying.
He didn't make the story,
70%
but he
of
talked to
seniors
him.
in America over 65 are protected, fully protected. Senior deaths from COVID-19 are down 80% since January. Down 80% because of all of you. And more than half of all the adults in America have gotten at least one shot. A mass vaccination center in Glendale, Arizona, I asked the nurse, I said, "What's it like?" She looked at me and she said, "It's like every shot is giving a dose of hope," was her phrase, a dose of hope.
It's a good
A
line.
dose of hope for an educator in Florida.
He's really taking
Shot,
pictures.
shot,
suffering
shot,
from
shot,
autoimmune
shot,
disease.
shot.
Wrote to me, said she's
What was
worried,
that?
she was worried about bringing the virus home. She said she then got vaccinated at a large site in her car. She said she sat in her car when she got vaccinated and just cried. Cried out of joy and cried out of relief.
Side
Parents,
effects.
seeing the smiles on their kids' faces for those who are able to go back to school because the teachers and school bus drivers and cafeteria workers have been vaccinated. Grandparents hugging their children and grandchildren instead of pressing hands against the window to say goodbye. It means everything. Those things mean everything. You know, there's still, you all know it, you know it better than any group of Americans. There's still more work to do to beat this virus. We can't let our guard down. But tonight, I can say, because of you, the American people, our progress these past 100 days against one of the worst pandemics in history has been one of the greatest logistical achievements this country's ever seen. What else?
It's an interesting word choice.
100 days? We kept our
And it's
commitment
just a great delivery.
Democrats
No
and
stutter or anything like that, you know?
of sending $1,400 rescue checks to 85% of American households. We've already sent more than 160 million checks out the door. It's making a difference. You all know it when you go home.
Both of those senators
For many
talked to me,
people,
La
it's making
Prensa,
all the difference in the world.
Was that
or
Lindsey
to
Graham?
Latino rebels.
The single
Yeah, that
mom
was.
in Texas who wrote me.
Oh, his hair went back to
She
white.
said she
You know,
couldn't
he
work.
got the blonde out.
But she said the relief check
He must have won
put
re-election.
food on the table and saved her and her son from eviction from their apartment. A grandmother in Virginia who told me she immediately took her granddaughter to the eye doctor. Something she said she put off for months because she didn't have the money.
Are those stories real?
One of the defining images, at least from my
Probably.
perspective in this crisis,
Yeah.
has been
I think so.
cars lined up.
Yeah.
Cars lined up for miles. And not people just barely able to start those cars, nice cars. Lined up for miles,
Because that was
waiting
important.
for a
Nice
box of
car.
food to be put in their trunk.
Not no
He's just-
jalop.
he's
no
just like in-
jalapenos.
Too, but I didn't ever think I'd see that in America.
He's
It
in
wasn't
Uncle
a bunch
Joe
of El
mode right now.
Caminos people. This
All of
motherfucker
this
had
is through
relevance.
no fault of their
He's
own.
in Uncle Joe mode right now. This is like Joe Biden
No
at his best.
fault of their own.
I just
these
want to know if
people
there
are
were
in
like
this
Impalas.
position. That's why the rescue plan is delivering food and nutrition assistance to millions of Americans facing hunger. And hunger is down sharply already. We're also providing rental assistance. You all know this, but the American people, I want to make sure they understand. Keeping people from being evicted from their homes. Providing loans to small businesses that reopen and keep their employees on the job. During these 100 days, an additional 800,000 Americans enrolled in the Affordable Care Act when I established a special sign-up period to do that. 800,000 in that period. We're making one of the largest one-time ever investments, ever, in improving health care for veterans. Critical investments to address the opioid crisis. And maybe most importantly, thanks to the American Rescue Plan, we're on track to cut child poverty in America in half this year. And in the process, while this was all going on, the economy created more than 1,300,000 new jobs in 100 days. More jobs in the first 100 days than any president on record. The International Monetary Fund is now estimating our economy will grow at a rate of more than 6% this year. That will be the fastest pace of economic growth in this country in nearly 4 decades. America's moving forward, but we can't stop now. We're in competition with China and other countries to win the 21st century. We're at a great inflection point in history. We have to do more than just build back better. We have to build back better. We have to compete more strenuously than we have. Throughout our history, if you think about it, public investment in infrastructure has literally transformed America, our attitudes as well as our opportunities. The Transcontinental Railroad, the interstate highways, united 2 oceans and brought a totally new age of progress to the United States of America. Universal public schools and college aid opened wide the doors of opportunity. Scientific breakthroughs took us to the moon. Now we're on Mars, discovering vaccines, gave us the internet, and so much more. These are investments we made together as one country, and investments that only the government was in a position to make. Time and again, they propel us into the future. That's why I proposed the American Jobs Plan, a once-in-a-generation investment in America itself. This is the largest jobs plan since World War II.
But Joe Manchin don't want
Creates
it.
jobs to upgrade our transportation infrastructure. Jobs modernizing our roads, bridges, highways. Jobs building ports and airports, rail corridors, transit lines. It's clean water.
Doesn't look happy.
Today, up
Mitch
to
doesn't
10
look
million
happy.
homes in America and more than
They're hard to read with
400,000
them. But you can
schools,
still
The mask.
child care centers
Yeah.
have pipes with lead in them, including drinking water.
All Mitch is thinking about is like, how am I going to get 3
Clear
more
and
seats in
present
the Senate?
danger to
3
our
more seats in
children's
the
health.
Senate.
American Jobs Plan creates jobs replacing 100% of the nation's lead pipes and service lines, so every American can drink clean water.
Dude, they need to replace the pipes in Columbia Heights.
And the
They're the worst
process
water
will
I've ever
create
had.
Thousands and thousands of good-paying jobs. It creates jobs connecting every American with high-speed internet, including 35% of the rural America that still doesn't have it. This is going to help our kids and our businesses succeed in the 21st century economy. And I'm asking the Vice President to lead this effort, if she would, because I know it'll get done.
She said yes.
Creates
So
jobs,
she's
building a modern
leading that
economy.
effort and Central American
Yeah,
migration.
And
Yeah.
Central American migration,
Storms,
yeah.
acts,
Yeah.
But what if she had said
catastrophic
no? What if she was just like,
with tight,
nah,
tragic
man.
results.
I,
As we saw in
I just
Texas
got
and
back from
elsewhere during winter
Guatemala.
storms. The American Jobs Plan will create jobs that lay thousands of miles of transmission lines needed to build a resilient and fully clean grid. We can do that. Look,
I wonder what the breakdown was of
American
Democrats
Jobs
versus
Plan
Republicans who got
will help
in this
millions of
session.
people get
You know?
back
I
to
know.
30-30.
I've only
and back to their careers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was 60
2 million
senators,
women.
30-30.
have
Yeah.
dropped out of the workforce during this pandemic. 2 million. And too often because they couldn't get the care they needed to care for their child or care for an elderly
You know,
parent.
after Donald Trump
needs
turned his speech
There he
into like
is.
the Rush Limbaugh show.
800,000
Yeah, man, he's reading a book.
are on the Medicare waiting list right now to get home care for their aging parent or loved one with
Did you guys see?
disability.
I just saw an article
If you think it's not important,
about
check
potentially
out
they
in
want
your
to
own
try to
district.
get the Medicaid age down to 50.
Democrat or Republican? Democrat or Republican voters?
I know you guys
Great
don't care,
concern,
but I'm
almost
only a
as
year
much
away
as the
from
children,
that.
is taking care of an elderly loved one who can't be left alone.
Although I feel like they'll have
Karina.
to figure out
Medicaid
immigration.
contemplated it, but this plan is going to help those families. And
Well,
create jobs for
immigration
our
is the lightning
caregivers
rod topic
with
that
better
every
wages and
Republican's
better
going to be
benefits.
talking about after the speech
Continue
anyway.
this cycle
So you
of
might as
growth.
well talk about it.
For too long, we've failed to use the most
Could close
important
off with
word
immigration. You think?
when it comes to meeting the climate crisis.
I don't know.
Jobs.
We'll see.
Jobs. Jobs.
Well, they'll need immigrant taxes to fund Medicaid.
Oh, they're always happy to take immigrant taxes. Always happy to take everything from immigrants. The question is, are they ever going to give anything back
me-
to us?
When I think climate change, I think jobs. The American Jobs Plan will put engineers and construction workers to work building more energy efficient buildings and homes. Electrical workers, IBEW members installing 500,000 charging stations along our highways so we can own the electric car market. Farmers planting cover crops so they can reduce the carbon dioxide in the air and get paid for doing
Has
it.
anybody else noticed that all the jobs he's talking about are done by immigrants?
Think about it.
Right. Building
There's
roads,
simply no
building
reason why
bridges,
the blades
replacing
for wind
pipes, farming
turbines can't be
crops.
built in Pittsburgh instead of Beijing.
You know what I mean?
No reason.
Yeah.
Dude, as long as they get paid, right?
They should
No
they should
reason.
call this the Immigrant Job Act, man. We're gonna make out like fucking bandits.
So, folks, there's no reason why American workers
Ossoff's in the
can't
chamber.
lead
Did
the
you see
world
that?
in the production of electric vehicles and batteries. I mean, there is no reason. We have the capacity. We have the brightest, best trained people in the world. The American Jobs Plan is going to create millions of good-paying jobs Americans can raise a family on. As my dad would then say, with a little breathing room.
Joey.
And all the investments in the American Job Plan will be guided by one principle.
This is
Buy
the one that they're gonna pass
American.
with budget reconciliation, right?
Buy American.
They're gonna try, yeah. Unless
Yeah.
Manchin says
And
no.
I might note parenthetically.
West Virginia is gonna do well with this bill. Oh,
that
Darren
does
Soto's
not-
in the room. Did you see
does
that?
not violate any
Yeah.
trade agreement. It's been the law since the 30s. Buy American.
CHC.
Julio, I didn't
American
realize
tax
you were an
dollars.
Arsenal fan.
Are going to be used to buy
I am.
American products
Nice.
made in America to create American jobs. That's the way it's supposed to be, and it will be in this administration.
Starting to Bring it home,
I made
Joe.
it clear to all
bring it
of my cabinet people, their ability to give exemptions.
I like his speech. I like his style. I like
No,
the way
it's
he's
good,
doing
but
it.
I'm like,
limited.
it's good, but
Will be American products.
He's just
But he's
warming up,
talking
man.
about the bill he knows he can
Some
pass,
of you at home are wondering,
yeah,
right? He's
whether these
planting the
jobs are
flag
for
to
you.
take credit on the bill he knows he can pass.
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
many
The Immigrant
so
Job
many
Act
folks
of
I grew up with
2021.
feel left behind,
But
forgotten, in an economy that's so rapidly changing. It's frightening.
He's just
I wanna
warming
speak
up, man. He's
directly
like
to
20
you.
minutes in.
Because you think about it. That's what people are most worried about. Can I fit in? Independent experts estimate the American Jobs Plan will add millions of jobs and trillions of dollars to economic growth in the years to come. It is a 8-year program. These are good paying jobs that can't be outsourced. Nearly 90% of the infrastructure jobs created in the American Jobs Plan do not require a college degree. 75% don't require an associate's degree. The American Jobs Plan is a blue-collar blueprint to build America. That's what it is.
Joe, that's Joe in his finest.
Look at those Republicans just sitting down.
And it recognizes something I've always said.
I mean, Republicans don't actually
This
care about
chamber,
blue collar
yeah.
people, though. They just
They don't.
cater to them at election time.
Good guys and women on Wall Street, but Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class.
Come on now, immigrants built the country. Y'all just take credit
That's why
for
I'm
it.
calling on Congress
Immigrants and black
to
people.
pass Protect
And black
the Right
people,
to
yeah.
Organize Act,
Fair.
the PRO Act, and send it to my desk so we can support the right to unionize. And by the way, while you're thinking about sending things to my desk, let's raise the minimum wage to $15.
Hey, that was a good delivery.
Drop that,
That was a
Mike.
good delivery.
He's on a roll. He's on a roll. Biden's doing pretty well.
Yes. Yeah.
I think they need to put more camera time on Republicans not clapping.
No doubt, man. Just like focus.
I think Mitt Romney sitting there with Marsha Blackburn, $15 an hour. Are you kidding me? I couldn't.
Paycheck Fairness Act to my desk as well. Equal pay. They spend much too long.
They got to focus in on what they're reading
And if
too.
you
Probably
wonder
find
whether
some
it's too
comic
long,
books.
look behind me. And finally, American Jobs Plan will be the biggest increase in non-defense research and development on record. We'll see more technological change, and some of you know more about this than I do.
All right, I got
See
some
more
remarks.
technological change in the next 10 years than we
Do
saw
it.
in the last 50. That's how rapidly artificial intelligence and so much more is changing. And we're falling
Well, let's talk
behind
about
the
some real
competition of the
intelligence.
rest
We
of
have
the world.
Julio Varela here tonight. Mr. President, if you
Decades
could for a
ago.
moment. Julio?
We used to invest 2% of our gross domestic product in America, 2% of our gross domestic product in research and development. Today, Mr. Secretary, that's less than 1%. China and other countries are closing in fast. We have to develop and dominate the products and technologies in
Okay.
the future.
Okay, I see what
Advanced
he's.
batteries.
Wow, okay.
What are your
biotechnology,
thoughts?
Computer chips.
I'm looking
I
at the
like
rest
China,
of
man.
I'm looking at the rest of the
Secretary
prepared
Defense can tell
remarks.
you, and those of you on
They were just
work in
shared
national
about
security
10
issues
minutes
now.
ago.
The Defense Department has an agency.
Dude, anybody
called
who
DARPA,
hates China doesn't spend enough time on TikTok because the
Defense
Chinese people I see on
Advanced
TikTok
Research
are awesome.
Project Agency. The people who set up before I came here, and that's been a long time ago, to develop breakthroughs that enhance our national security. That's their only job. And it's a semi-separate agency. It's under the Defense Department.
He's going to start wrapping up on this and
It's
moving
led
on to the
everything from
American
the discovery of
Families
the
Plan.
internet to GPS and so much more that's enhanced our security. The National Institute of Health, the NIH, I believe, should create a similar advanced research projects agency for health. And here's what it would do. It would have a singular purpose: to develop breakthroughs to prevent, detect, and treat diseases like Alzheimer's, diabetes, and cancer. I'll still never forget when we passed the cancer proposal in the last year as vice president. Almost $9 million going to NIH. And they've excused the point of personal privilege. I'll never forget you standing, Mitch, and saying, name it after my deceased son. It meant a lot. But so many of us have deceased sons, daughters, and relatives who died of cancer.
All right, I got
I can
the.
think of no more worthy investment. I know of nothing that is more bipartisan. So let's end cancer as we know it. It's within our power. It's within our power to do it.
Got a
Investments in jobs and
somewhat
infrastructure like the
substantial
ones we're
section on
talking about
immigration that'll come
have
near
often
the
had
end of the
bipartisan
speech.
support in the past.
Now that I'm reading at
Vice
the
President
prepared remarks
Harris
from the
and I met regularly in the
White
Oval Office
House.
with Democrats and Republicans and
Oh,
discussed
they're
Is
it.
that where he talks about Chile?
And I applaud a group of Republican
No, there's no
senators
mention
who
of Chile
supported their
or
own
Puerto
proposal.
Rico. So
So let's get to work. I wanted to lay out before the Congress my plan before we got into the deep discussions. I'd like to meet with those who have ideas that are different. they
John
think are better.
Barrasso, like, yo,
I welcome
I
those
want to talk to
ideas.
Latino rebels. I just read
But
this
the
story.
rest of the world is not waiting for
who
it.
said that?
I just
Nah,
want to be clear.
John Barrasso is sitting there.
From
He's
my
the one I haven't
perspective,
talked to.
doing nothing is not an
Oh,
option.
let's not talk about this story. That has nothing to do with tonight.
Until I have to clean this shit up afterwards.
Look, we can't be so busy competing with one another that we forget the competition that we have with the rest of the world to win the 21st century.
It's very true.
Secretary Blinken can tell you, I spent a lot of time with President Xi. Traveled over 17,000 miles with him.
What?
Spent, they tell me, over 24 hours in private discussions with him. When he called
When
to
was this?
congratulate him, we had a 2-hour discussion. He's deadly earnest about becoming the most significant, consequential nation in the world. He and others, autocrats, think that democracy can't compete in the 21st century with autocracies. It takes too long to get consensus. To win that competition for the future,
That's interesting.
in my
It
view,
was, man. That's a good point.
we also need to make
Yeah.
a once-in-a-generation investment in our families and our children.
American Families
That's
Plan
why
coming
I've
up next.
introduced the American Families Plan tonight,
Oh, look at that. Julio,
which
right on cue.
addresses 4 of the biggest challenges facing American
Yeah, I have
families and
I have the
America.
prepared remarks in front of me.
First is access to good education.
How did he
This
send them to
nation
you while
made
he was
12
speaking,
years of
though?
public education
It's
universal
from the White
in
House.
the last century. It made us the best educated, best prepared nation in the world. It's, I believe, the overwhelming reason that propelled us to where we got in the 20th century.
What's
The
he
world
talking
is
about?
caught up or catching up.
So expect
You know,
a piecemeal approach to
I would say
immigration when he
parenthetically,
talks.
If we were
You'll
sitting
see.
down, we said a bipartisan
Okay,
committee
so
together
we'll
and say,
build a
okay,
wall, and we'll get a bunch of
we're gonna
drones
decide
and
what
shit,
we
and
do
then
in
immigrants
terms
will
of
get
government
deported.
providing for free education.
Trash.
I wonder whether we'd think, as we did in the 20th century, that 12 years is enough in the 21st century.
Karina, we can't hear you.
I doubt it. 12 years is no longer enough today to compete with the rest of the world in the 21st century. That's why my American Families Plan guarantees 4 additional years of public education for every person in America, starting as early as we can. The great universities in this country have conducted studies of the last 10 years. It shows that adding 2 years of
We're about
universal
halfway through.
high-quality preschool for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old, no matter what background they come from, puts them in a position to be able to compete all the way through 12 years, and increases exponentially their prospect of graduating and going on beyond graduation. The research shows when a young child goes to school, not daycare, they're far more likely to graduate from high school and go to college or something after high school. When you add 2 years of free community college on top of that, you begin to change the dynamic. We can do that. And we'll increase Pell Grants and invest in historical black colleges and universities, tribal colleges.
Hey, we got a comment on the stream while we're watching.
What's it say?
They don't have the endowments.
From Aaliyah, I will be interested
But
to
there's
hear
students
your
who are just as
thoughts
capable
on
of
why
learning
competition
about
with China
cybersecurity,
was
just
such
as
a
capable of
prominent
learning
point.
about metallurgy, all the things
Because
that are
they're
going
beating
on
us.
to provide those jobs of the future.
Right?
That's your take?
Jill is a community
like you
I
college
mean, we
professor.
invented Facebook. They invented
Teaches
TikTok,
today as
which is
First
cooler.
Lady. She's long said,
I hear an echo now. So that's basically your take, because they invented TikTok and we invented Facebook. That's what you're going to tell
Yeah, I
me.
mean, like when I turn on the TV and I see what's going on in China, I'm like, you know, they're doing awesome things on TikTok. When they turn on the TV and see what's happening in the United States, they see a bunch of hillbillies running through the Capitol with Trump flags.
if I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times.
They're also
Joe,
far more disciplined.
Any country that out-educates us is going to outcompete
I think the
us.
Chinese people are awesome. I've never been there, but I think they're awesome.
Thank you.
All right, so here's we got another question.
Second thing,
It's a little bit of feedback I'm getting,
American
so I don't know
Families
what's up
Plan
with
will
that.
provide access to quality, affordable child care.
Various proposals on the Hill for child tax credits, reducing poverty, child care right now. I wonder how many Democrats will have to compromise in order to get something through the Senate. Yeah, that's a really good point, Aaliyah. I mean, this is a big ask for a lot of things.
That low and middle income families will pay no more than
You guys
70%
getting a feedback?
of their income for high
What's that?
quality care. for
You guys getting a
children
feedback?
under
I hear
age
like
5.
I
The
am.
most hard-pressed working
A
families
little bit. I think
won't
there's
have to
like
spend a dime.
microphone near.
Third, the American
I
Families
can barely
Plan
hear you,
will
Karina.
finally provide up to 12 weeks
And
of
I have an
paid
echo.
leave
Hold on.
and medical leave, family medical leave. We're one of the few industrial countries in the world. No one should have to choose between a job and a paycheck, or taking care
better?
of themselves and their loved ones, or parent, or spouse, or child. And fourth,
my opinions on that.
Aaliyah,
While you're watching, is that again, this is like
Hold on.
really
in March,
We have a
Biden,
really bad.
expanded tax credit for every child.
asking for too much.
Echo.
It's all politics right now. Yeah, that's all it is. We'll see what happens.
If they're under 6 years of age. I mean, excuse me, over 6 years of age. And $3,600 for children over 6 years of age. With two parents, two kids, that's $7,200 to help take care of your family. And that will help more than 65 million
Yeah, that's better.
children.
Yeah,
And
it was
help
me.
cut child
Sorry.
poverty in half.
What were you doing?
And we can afford
Working on the night moves, man. Working on the night moves.
So we did that in
Karina, can we hear you now?
in the last piece of legislation we passed. But let's extend that child care tax credit at least through the end of 2025.
All right, where are we at here?
The American Rescue Plan lowered health care premiums for 9 million Americans who buy their coverage under the Affordable Care Act. I know that's really popular this side of the aisle. But let's make that provision permanent so their premiums don't go back up. In addition to my family's plan, I'm going to work with Congress to address this year other critical priorities for American families. The Affordable Care Act has been a lifeline for millions of Americans, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, protecting women's health, and the pandemic has demonstrated how badly it's needed. Let's lower deductibles for working families on the Affordable Care Act. And let's lower prescription drug costs.
Hey, I'm back.
We know how
Hey.
to do this.
So you guys can hear me now?
The last
Yeah.
president had that as an objective. We all know how outrageously expensive drugs are in America. In fact, we pay the highest prescription drug prices of anywhere in the world, right here in America. Nearly three
It sounded
times.
like Bernie Sanders. Cut to
The
Bernie
same
Sanders.
job, nearly
Boom.
3
It
times.
happened like that.
What other
Like, cut to
countries
Bernie
pay.
Sanders.
We have to change that, and we can. Let's do what we talked about for all the years I was down here in this body, in Congress. Let's give Medicare the power to save hundreds of billions of dollars by negotiating lower drug prescription prices. And by the way, it won't just help people on Medicare. Lower prescription drug costs for everyone. And the money we save, which is billions of dollars, can go to strengthen the Affordable Care Act and expand Medicare coverage benefits without costing taxpayers an additional penny. It's within our power to do it. Let's do it now. We've talked about it long enough. Democrats and Republicans. Let's get it done this year. This is all about a simple premise. Health care should be a right, not a privilege in America.
Wow.
But
it's going to
again,
move to taxes.
everything's related to immigration.
How do we pay for
how
my
are we gonna
jobs and
fund
family
all
plan?
of this, you know?
I made it clear we can do it without increasing the deficits. Let's start with what I will not do. I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share.
Time to pay up.
Just their fair share.
Romney.
Romney.
Romney's like, no way.
Sometimes I have arguments with my friends in the Democratic Party. I think you should be able to become a billionaire and a millionaire, but pay your fair share. A recent study shows that 55 of the nation's biggest corporations paid zero federal tax last year. Those 55 corporations made in excess of $40 billion in profit.
It's a lot.
And zero taxes, man.
A lot of companies
Insane.
also evade taxes through tax havens in Switzerland and Bermuda and the Cayman Islands. And they benefit from tax loopholes and deductions for offshoring jobs and shifting profits overseas. It's not right.
No.
We're going to reform corporate taxes so they pay their fair share and help pay for the public investments their businesses will benefit from as well.
There's still a lot left.
We're going to reward work,
Mr. President,
not
give us a
just
second.
wealth.
Hi, Chico.
You guys getting
We take
very
the top
concerned
tax
about
bracket
these corporate taxes.
for the wealthiest 1% of Americans, those making over $400,000 or more, back
Oh, I
up to
miss
where it
Mabel.
was when George W. Bush was president.
Chico's not
when it
happy.
started. 39.6%. That's where it was when George W. was president. We're going to get rid of the loopholes, allow Americans to make more than $1 million a year and pay a lower tax rate on their capital gains than Americans who receive a paycheck. We're only going to affect 0.3% of all Americans by that action, 0.3%. And the IRS is going to crack down on millionaires and billionaires who cheat on their taxes.
What's the point
It's
of being a
estimated
YouTube millionaire
to be
anymore, guys,
billions
if we
of
can't even
dollars.
pay tax?
By think tanks are left, right, and center.
Yeah, Chico's getting very tense with
I'm not
this
looking to
topic.
punish anybody. But I will not add a tax burden, additional tax burden to the middle class in this country. They're already paying enough. I believe what I propose is fair.
Yo, it's poor people that
Fiscally
get audited,
responsible.
though. Everybody knows that.
And it raises revenue to pay for the plans I propose and will create millions of jobs that will grow the economy and
What about
enhance
poor people?
our financial standing in the country. When you hear someone say they don't want to raise taxes on the wealthiest 1% or corporate America, ask them, whose taxes you want to raise? Instead, whose are you going to cut? Look, the big tax cut of 2017. Remember, it was supposed to pay for itself. That was how it was
It
sold.
didn't at all. Not even close.
And generate vast economic growth. Instead, it added $2 trillion to the deficit.
Unpaid, no jobs.
It was a huge
Gave us
windfall
no
for
jobs.
corporate America and those at the very top. Instead of using the tax saving to raise wages and invest in research and development, it poured billions of dollars into the pockets of CEOs.
Bought some
It
yachts.
was all buybacks, man.
In
They
fact,
didn't hire
the pay gap
anybody.
between CEOs and their workers is now among the largest in history. According to
Thanks,
one
Kevin
study,
McCarthy.
CEOs make 320 times what the average worker in their corporation makes. It used to be below 100. The pandemic has only made things worse. 20 million Americans lost their job in the pandemic, working and middle-class Americans. At the same time, roughly 650 billionaires in America saw their net worth increase by more than $1 trillion in the same exact period. Let me
Damn.
say it again.
Say it again.
650 people increased their wealth by more than $1 trillion during this pandemic.
Holy cow.
And they're now worth more than $4 trillion. My
That's
fellow
nuts.
Americans, trickle down. Trickle down economics has never worked. And it's
That's
time to
true.
grow the economy from the bottom and the middle out.
That's some serious cash, man. $4 trillion.
You know, there's a broad consensus of economists left, right, and center, and they agree what I'm proposing will help create millions of jobs and generate historic economic growth. These are among the highest values investments we can make as a nation. I've often said our greatest strength is the power of our example, not just the example of our power. In my conversations with world leaders, and I've spoken to over 38, 40 of them now, I've made it known that America's back. And you know what they say? The comment I hear most of all from them is they say, we see America's back, but for how long? But for how long? My fellow Americans, we have to show not just that we're back, but that we're back to stay, and that we aren't going to go it alone. We're going to do it by leading with our allies. No one nation can deal with all the crises of our time, from terrorism to nuclear proliferation, mass migration, cybersecurity, climate change, as well as what we're experiencing now, pandemics. There's no wall high enough to keep any virus out. And our own vaccine supply, as it grows to meet our needs,
That was a weird.
And we're
there's
meeting
no
now.
all-
Yeah.
Right.
That was
become an
weird.
arsenal for vaccines for other countries, just as America was an arsenal for democracy for the world,
Arsenal.
and a consequence influence the world.
Shot.
But every American will have access before that occurs. Every American will have access to be fully covered by COVID-19 from the vaccines we have.
There's no wall high
Look,
enough. What about
The
Title
climate
42?
crisis
What's going
is
on?
not
with
our
the war?
fight alone. It's a global fight.
He doesn't
The
bring
United
it up.
States
Yeah.
accounts, as all of you know, less than 15% of carbon emissions. The rest of the world accounts for 85%. That's why I kept my commitment to rejoin the Paris Accord, because if we do everything perfectly, it's not going to only matter. I kept my commitment to convene a climate summit right here in America with all the major economies of the world: China, Russia, India, European Union. And I said I'd do it in my first 100 days. I want to be very blunt about it. My attempt was to make sure that the world could see there was a consensus, that we are at an inflection point in history. And
Hey,
consensus
breaking
is
news.
if
I'm getting my
we
Twitter
act to
account
save the
back
planet,
as we talk.
we can create millions of jobs
How long did it take you?
and economic growth and opportunity to raise the standard of living of almost everyone around the world. If you watched any of it and you were all busy, I'm sure you didn't have much time. That's what virtually every nation said, even the ones that aren't doing their fair share. The investments I propose tonight also advance the foreign policy, in my view, that benefits the middle class. That means making sure every nation plays by the same rules in the global economy, including China. In my discussion with President Xi, I told him, we welcome the competition. We're not looking for conflict. But I made absolutely clear that we will defend America's interest across the board. America will stand up to unfair trade practices that undercut American workers. And
I'm
American
kind of excited right
industries like
now.
Subsidies
It's a long.
to state-owned operations.
It only
and
took me 5
enterprises,
days.
and the theft of American technology and intellectual property. I also told President Xi that we'll maintain a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific, just as we do with NATO and Europe. Not to start a conflict, but to prevent one.
I'm going to talk about climate change and then George Floyd. Then we're going to get to immigration. Be very interesting to see what you guys think
Oh,
when we
I
get
told
there.
them what I've said to many
I mean,
world leaders,
immigration runs
that
through all
America
of
will not back away from our commitments, our commitment to human rights and fundamental freedoms, and to our alliances. And I pointed out to him, no responsible American president could remain silent when basic human rights are being so blatantly violated. An American president has to represent the essence of what our country stands for. America is an idea, the most unique idea in history.
America's an idea.
We are created, all of us equal. It's who we are. And we cannot walk away from that principle.
Oh my God, it's not an
And in
idea, and we're
fact,
not
say
equal. Give me a
It's
break.
We're dealing
experiment
with the
more than
American
an
idea. With regard to Russia,
Piece of land.
I know
man.
it concerns some of you, but I made very clear to Putin that we're not going to seek escalation, but their actions will have consequences. They turn out to be true, and they turned out to be true. So I responded directly and proportionately to Russia's interference in our elections and the cyber attacks on our government and our business. They did both of these things, and I told them we would respond, and we have. But we can also cooperate when it's our mutual interest. We did it when we extended the New START Treaty on nuclear arms, and we're working to do it on climate change. But he understands we will respond. On Iran and North Korea, nuclear programs that present serious threats to American security and the security of the world. We're going to be working closely with our allies to address the threats posed by both of these countries through diplomacy as well as stern deterrence. And American leadership means ending the forever war in Afghanistan. We have
Are you guys all on your phone?
We have,
Because I'm accessing my
without
Twitter
hyperbole,
account.
the greatest fighting force in the history of the world.
I'm listening.
I'm
I read
first
the whole
president in
speech
40
like 10
years
minutes
that knows
ago.
what it means to have
Yeah,
a
I
son
know.
serving in a war
I
zone.
can't reveal it because it's still embargo
Today we have
until he
service
says it.
members serving
So-
in the same war zone
Is
as their
immigration
parents
coming
did.
up, though? Can you give me that?
We have
spoiler?
service
Yes,
members in
yes, it
Afghanistan
is.
who were not yet born on 9/11. The war in Afghanistan, as we remember the debates here, were never meant to be multi-generational undertakings of nation building. We went to Afghanistan to get the terrorists who attacked us on 9/11. And we said we would follow Osama bin Laden to the gates of hell to do it.
He's going to bring up bin
Then
Laden,
in
that
the
they
Upper
killed bin
Konar
Laden.
Valley, you've kind of seen the gates of hell. And we delivered justice to bin Laden. We degraded the terrorist threat of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. And after 20 years of valor, and sacrifice, it's time to bring those troops home. Look, even as we do, we'll maintain over-the-horizon capacity to suppress future threats to the homeland. And make no mistake, in 20 years, terrorism
About
has
47
metastasized.
minutes
The
in.
threat has evolved way beyond Afghanistan. Those of you in the intelligence committees, the foreign relations committee, defense committees, you know well, we have to remain vigilant against the threats to the United States wherever they come from. Al-Qaeda and ISIS are in Yemen, Syria, Somalia, other places in Africa, in the Middle East, and beyond. And we won't ignore what our intelligence agencies have determined to be the most lethal terrorist threat to the homeland today. White supremacy is terrorism.
Yeah, there you go.
There you
There you
go.
go.
Fellow Americans, look,
It's
have to
it's
come
going to get a
together.
little bit interesting now.
to heal the soul of this nation.
Nice.
There's
It took a
no
while.
Interesting so far.
It took a while.
Funeral
You know,
We
this
mu-
is a
when
direction
I
I
spoke
think it's-
with
yeah.
Gianna Floyd, George Floyd's young daughter.
All right, this is important.
She
Watch,
was a little
listen.
tight, so I was kneeling down to talk to her, so I could look her in the eye. She looked at me. She said, "My daddy changed the world." Well,
Okay.
after the conviction of George Floyd's murderer, we can see how right she was if
He
we
lived.
have the courage to act as a Congress. We've all seen the knee of injustice on the neck of Black Americans. Now's our opportunity to make some real progress. The vast majority of men and women wearing a uniform and a badge serve our communities, and they serve them honorably. I know them. I know they want.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a good part.
Max.
This is a good part.
No, they're on. They panned the waters. They panned straight the waters.
They want to help meet this moment as well. My fellow Americans, we have to come together to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the people they serve, to root out systemic racism in our criminal justice system,
Yeah.
and to enact police reform in George Floyd's name that passed the House already. I know Republicans have their own ideas and are engaged in a very productive discussions with Democrats in the Senate. We need to work together to find a consensus. But let's get it done next month, by the first anniversary of George Floyd's death.
Is anybody from the squad in the room? Do we know?
The country supports
haven't seen
this
anybody.
reform.
I don't even see
Yeah,
it.
me either.
Congress should act. We have a giant opportunity to bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice, real justice. And with the plans outlined tonight, we have a real chance to root out systemic racism that plagues America and American lives in other ways. A chance to deliver real equity, good
Yeah.
jobs, good schools, affordable housing, clean air, clean water, being able to generate wealth and pass it down through generations because you have an access to purchase a house. Real opportunities in the lives of more Americans, Black, white, Latino, Asian Americans, Native Americans. Look, I also want to thank the United States Senate for voting 94-1 to pass the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act to protect Asian American and Pacific Islanders.
Only person who didn't vote for it.
Holly. Josh Holly.
Josh Howley.
Josh Holly.
I have my Twitter
You
account
see on
back.
television the
So
viciousness
excited.
Oh,
of the hate
congrats. I'm
crimes
happy
Only
for
took
you.
we've
5
seen
days.
over the past year.
Do you think he's going to mention
For
that?
too long.
I'm going to check the prepared remarks right now just to confirm it.
Anxiously sign. I also hope Congress will get to
I will
my
put
desk
on record that
the Equality
Puerto
Act
Rico
to
will
protect
not be mentioned.
LGBTQ Americans. For all transgender Americans watching at home, especially young people, you're so brave. I want you to know your president has your back. Another thing, let's authorize the Violence Against Women Act, which has been law for 27 years.
Giant
27 years
Paul.
ago, I wrote it.
Where's Monique, huh?
It'll
Karina?
close the act.
I don't know where
has to
Cory
be
Bush
authorized
is.
Now will close
Where's
the
AOC?
boyfriend
Oh,
loophole.
right. Yeah.
To keep guns out of the hands of abusers. The court order said this is an abuser. You can't own a gun. It's to close that loophole that existed. You know, it's estimated that 50 women are shot and killed by an intimate partner every month in America.
Good point. This is
50
good.
a month.
Damn.
Yeah.
Let's pass it and save some lives.
Hey, friend of
Now,
Latino
maybe-
Rebels, Nydia Velasquez, Latino Rebels
I'm
radio
not telling
star.
anyone this, but gun violence has become an epidemic in America.
She's amazing.
The
She
side
really
at the
is.
White House
Yeah.
was still fine at half
I love your
mast.
interviews with her. They're really good.
Call me
Really.
Julito. Call me
Victims of the mass
Julito.
shooting
I
in
was like,
Georgia. When 10 more
it
lives were
was
taken in
awesome.
the mass shooting in Colorado.
It's like you're my.
And in the week
Yeah.
in between those two events,
I rarely get like
250 other
emotional,
Americans were
but
shot dead in the streets of America. 250 shot dead.
yeah.
I know how hard it is to make progress on this issue. In the 90s, we passed universal background checks. A ban on
Immigration's
assault
coming
rifles
right
and
after this.
high-capacity magazines that hold 100
Get ready.
rounds that can be fired off in seconds.
Is that Lauren Boebert?
We beat the NRA.
It is Lauren Boebert.
Mass shootings and gun violence declined.
like,
Check
Mike
out the
Gunn's in my
report over 10 years. But in
I-
the
we
early
can't hear you.
2000s, the law expired. We've seen daily bloodshed since. I'm not saying if the law continued, we wouldn't see bloodshed. More than 2 weeks
You're really
ago in the
low.
Rose Garden,
You might have to drop off and come back in.
surrounded by some of the bravest people I know, the survivors and families who lost loved ones to gun violence. I laid out several of the Department of Justice actions that are
Okay,
being taken
right
to
after this,
impact on this epidemic.
it's probably like 2-3
One of
minutes on,
them
maybe 4 minutes
It's
on
banning
immigration.
so-called ghost guns.
Right
All right,
after
guys,
this
take a deep
section.
breath.
Homemade guns
How's that,
built
Pablo?
with
He's
a
gonna
kit that
speak to
includes
us.
directions how to finish the firearm.
Prep yourself.
The parts have no serial
Some
numbers,
interesting word choices are
So they
in
show
the
up
speech.
at
I want to
crime
see if you
scene.
pick them up.
and they can't be
So did he
traced.
kind of leave immigration
The
to the
buyers of
end?
these ghost gun
Like-
kits aren't required
It's
to
near
pass
the
any
end, yeah.
background check.
Is it
Yeah.
almost like an afterthought? or
Anyone
are you-
From a
Well,
criminal or terrorist,
Get ready.
Julio, real quick.
Buy this
Yeah, I'm
kit,
gonna ask
and within
the
30
members
minutes,
in there about the
have a
immigration
weapon
part of the
that's
speech.
lethal.
Yeah, here it
No
comes.
more.
Right after the gun
And I'll do
part.
everything in my power to protect the American people.
Viewer,
from
I'm
this
actually in the
epidemic of gun
Capitol.
violence, but it's time for Congress to act as well.
All right, and then here it comes.
Okay, here we go.
I think it's. Get ready. Next minute. If I have my calculations right.
I don't want to become confrontational, but we need more Senate Republicans to join the overwhelming majority of Democratic colleagues and close the loopholes required in background check purchases of guns. We need a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And don't tell me it can't be done. We did it before and it worked.
Yeah, almost there.
Talk to most responsible gun owners and hunters. They'll tell you there's no possible justification for having 100 rounds
100
in a
bullets.
weapon. What do you think?
Joe
Gary wearing
Manchin.
Kevlar vests?
Oh, that's
His
an
mask looks like a
ad.
diaper.
They'll tell you that there are too many people today who are able to buy a gun but shouldn't be able to buy a gun. These kinds of reasonable reforms have overwhelming support from the American people, including many gun owners.
Yeah.
The country supports reform this, and Congress should act. This shouldn't be a red or blue issue.
Here it comes.
And no
right after
amendment
this.
to the Constitution is absolute. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. From the very beginning, there were certain guns, weapons, that could not be owned by Americans. Certain people could not own those weapons ever. We're not changing the Constitution. We're being reasonable. I think
Yeah.
this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. I think it's an American issue. And here's what else we can do.
Here it comes.
Immigration has always
Here
been
it goes.
essential to America. Let's end our exhausting war over immigration. For more than 30 years, politicians have talked about immigration reform, and we've done nothing about it. It's time to fix it. On day one of my presidency, I kept my commitment and sent a comprehensive immigration bill to the United States Congress.
He did.
If you believe we need to secure the border, pass it because it has a lot of money for high-tech border security. If you believe in a pathway to citizenship, pass it.
I
Over
do.
11 million undocumented folks, the vast majority of here overstaying visas. Pass it. We can actually, if you actually want to solve a problem,
Pass
I've
it.
sent a bill to take a close look at it.
Oh, Ted Cruz.
We also have to get at the root problem of why people are fleeing, particularly to our
He was
southern border
sleeping?
from Guatemala
He was
like
sleeping.
and El Salvador.
Yeah.
The violence, the
He's
corruption,
faking
the
it. He's an
gangs, the
actor.
political instability, hunger, hurricane,
I'm gonna ask him.
earthquakes,
I'm gonna ask him if he fell
natural
asleep though.
disasters.
Political
When
theater.
I was president, when I was vice president, the president asked me to focus on providing help needed to address the root causes of migration. and it helped keep people in their own countries instead of being forced to leave. The plan was working, but the last administration decided it was not worth it. I'm restoring the program and asked Vice President Harris to lead our diplomatic effort to take care of this. I have absolute confidence she'll get the job done. Now look, if you don't like my plan, let's at least pass what we all agree on.
Exactly. Let's go
Congress
piecemeal.
needs to pass legislation this year to finally secure protection for dreamers.
Yes.
The young people
Remac.
who've only known America as their home. And
Where's
permanent
Ted Cruz? I
protection
want to see what
for
Ted Cruz looks like,
immigrants
you know.
who are here on temporary protective status who came from countries
PS and Dream
beset by
and Dream Act.
man-made and natural-made violence and disaster, as well as a pathway to citizenship for farm workers who put food on our tables. Look, immigrants have done so much for America during this pandemic and throughout our history. The country supports immigration reform. We should act. Let's argue over it. Let's debate it. But let's act. And if we truly want to restore the soul of America, we need to protect the sacred right to vote.
Yeah.
Most people
I mean, this is all a little predictable.
More
I mean,
people
how do
voted in the
you guys
last
feel the same?
presidential election than any time in American history, in the middle of the worst pandemic ever. It should be celebrated. Instead, it's being attacked. Congress should pass H.R. 1 and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and send it to my desk right away. The country supports it, and Congress should act now. Look, in conclusion, as we gather here tonight, the image of a violent mob assaulting this Capitol, desecrating our democracy, remain vivid in all our minds. Lives were put at risk, many of your lives. Lives were lost. Extraordinary courage was summoned. The insurrection was an existential crisis, a test of whether our democracy could survive, and it did. But the struggle is far from over. The question of whether our democracy will long endure is both ancient and urgent. As old as our republic, still vital today. Can our democracy deliver on its promise that all of us, created equal in the image of God, had a chance to lead lives of dignity, respect, and possibility? Can our democracy deliver to the most pressing needs of our people? Can our democracy overcome the lies, anger, hate, and fears that have pulled us apart? America's adversaries, the autocrats of the world, are betting we can't. And I promise you they're betting we can't. They believe we're too full of anger and division and rage. They look at the images of the mob that assaulted the Capitol as proof that the sun is setting on American democracy. But they're wrong. You know it, I know it. But we have to prove them wrong. We have to prove democracy still works, that our government still works, and we can deliver for our people. In our first 100 days together, we've acted to restore people's faith in democracy to deliver. We're vaccinating the nation. We're creating hundreds of thousands of new jobs. We're delivering real results to people. They can see it and feel it in their own lives. Opening doors of opportunity, guaranteeing some more fairness and justice. That's the essence of America. That's democracy in action. Our Constitution opens with the words, as trite as it sounds, "We the people." Well, it's time to remember that we, the people, are the government. You and I. Not some force in a distant capital. Not some powerful force that we have no control over. It's us. It's we, the people. In another era, when our democracy was tested, Franklin Roosevelt reminded us, in America, we do our part. We're
almost
do
done.
Our part. That's all I'm asking. That we do our part, all of us. And if we do that, we will meet the center challenge of the age by proving that democracy is durable and strong. Autocrats will not win the future. We will. America will. And the future belongs to America. As I stand here tonight before you in a new and vital hour of life and democracy of our nation, and I can say with absolute confidence, I have never been more confident or optimistic about America. Not because I'm president, because of what's happening with the American people. We've stared into the abyss of insurrection and autocracy, pandemic and pain, and we, the people, did not flinch. At the very moment our adversaries were certain we'd pull apart and fail, we came together, we united. With light and hope, we summoned a new strength, new resolve to position us to win the competition of the 21st century. On our way to a union more perfect, more just, as one people, one nation, and one America. Folks, as I told every world leader I've ever met with over the years, it's never, ever, ever been a good bet to bet against America, and it still isn't. We're the United States of America. There's not a single thing, nothing beyond our capacity. We can do whatever we set our minds to if we do it together. So let's begin to get together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you for your patience.
Got to protect the troops. Okay.
Well, many of whom. Ivan, do you want to turn down the video feed of this guy walking
There he
out?
is.
There you go.
There it's go.
Karina, can you do a quick 1, 2, 3 just to make sure we can hear you?
1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Karina, what did you think? You go first.
All right, we can start. I mean, all right. So I think it was a little predictable. I mean, I thought, based on what we were saying before, I thought he would try to reach across the aisle to the other part of America a little bit more. He didn't really do that. I mean, he acknowledged the divisiveness that has existed, but I don't know if what he said is really going to motivate the other half of America to buy into what he's selling. But other than that, is pretty much what we predicted. He would take a victory lap, and that immigration would probably, not take a starring role, which it really didn't. And, he didn't address a lot of the concerns that progressive groups and humanitarian groups have brought up. And there was also, honestly, there was that weird moment. What was that weird comment about, we can't build walls to keep this
Virus.
to keep this virus out? Well, then what is Title 42? I don't know.
Right.
There are parts of it that I just, it was predictable, but I think in a lot of ways he didn't go far enough for me. I think he probably could have given, some credit to the previous administration on Operation Warp Speed. That probably would have been a feel-good moment. He chose not to.
I thought that'd be easy. I thought that would be an easy thing. Like, of all the things, just thank someone for the vaccine. I'm just saying, continue, because I was like, you can't even do that.
Yeah, just because we are, he acknowledged we are so divided, but I do think half of the country is going to watch that, and they're not, there's nothing in there that's going to make them say, okay, I'm going to take a different approach to President Biden. So that's my take. Who's next?
I'll go. So I think that tomorrow, the predictable headline is going to be that no one watched Biden's speech compared to Trump's State of the Union speech, and that has become because that in our political media culture is often the measure,
Yeah.
It's a click culture or a fucking ratings culture instead of like a truth and accountability culture, which is sad. But the immigration obviously was the most important thing to me tonight. Yeah, no, we're not going to get anything. The border security coffers are going to get filled again, and immigrants are going to get nothing again. Like, they're desperate right now to get some sort of bipartisan consensus on the DREAM Act, and the DREAM Act has always been the saltine at the banquet of, the legislative session, right, for immigrants. So like,
is it a yummy saltine,
I mean?
or is it a stale saltine?
No, it's one crusty ass saltine that's been sitting on the top of your dresser for 20 years that has to be divided up by 300,000 immigrant youth that are now about to turn 40. So like, the thing about like this speech is that it's crap, and it just goes to show you how far, and just on the immigration part, like I think overall it was a good speech, but the immigration part is it's just another moment where we see people who have been career immigration advocates go to the White House and just completely drop the ball. Because what is the same thing that happened during Obama, is that these advocates come in and they have like a career of like making poster boards and going to marches and shit. And they get to the White House and the national security teams come in and they say, okay, children, get out of the room. We're going to write the immigration policy and you're going to execute it. Now, the sad thing is that when the national security people came into the Biden White House, they took Stephen Miller's plans and were just like, yo, let's just keep doing this. I mean, if you don't have a better idea, let's keep doing this. And the people who are on Biden's team that came from the campaign land, that came from these immigrant advocacy places, right? They still don't have the strength of character or of numbers or whatever you want to call it to slam their hand down on the table in the middle of a meeting and be like, sir, my White House, my business card says White House. My email says White House. Yours says DOD. You sit down, right? Because, and again, like other advocacy, like if you talk to Eric, if you talk to other people in other advocacy like areas, the White House, gay rights, Black people, the AAPI like community, like the business community, like people who are assigned to these portfolio items will throw down in a meeting against anybody who doesn't have White House on their business card, right? That's never been the case with immigration policy advisors. Immigration policy advisors are infamous for being like, oh my God, my trauma got in the way. Oh my God, my otherism I don't know what it got in the way. I felt imposter syndrome. It's like, I'm sorry, stand up on the table and light yourself on fire until people do what they tell you to do in these meetings. There are only so many times you're actually going to be in the Oval Office in your life. There are only so many times you're actually going to be in the diplomat's room. And if you shit the bed during that meeting, why would anybody have you back in the meeting? You're going to be, as Karina knows, you're going to be cast out to the EEOB and some of these other buildings where meeting rooms happen, right? But you're not going to be back in the White House having a substantive policy discussion with people who matter and who actually drive policy. So that's what that speech shows us tonight, A. Besides that, it was a pretty good speech. I mean, I was kind of disappointed that they didn't give Chico a shout out or talk about Puerto Rico, but the immigration part was bad. The immigration part basically kicked it to Congress knowing that nothing is going to happen, but gave them the carrot anyway of unnecessary border security funding. Like they're saying like, just take the border security money. Like, the hippies wrote it into the bill, just take it. Like that'll help us get reelected during the midterms if we do it that way. It won't. It just won't.
Yeah.
But
right?
Didn't it sound, I think it sounded like his Obamacare issue that he's going to go after, like what Obama did. I think it's the infrastructure plan that he's really focused on. He's going to It's like I think he's
and families.
Yeah, well, families, but he definitely spent a lot of time on, from a sales pitch, he was pitching that infrastructure plan. He's really trying to figure out how he's going to get Republicans to come on board. And knowing that Manchin doesn't really, he likes the Republican side. So he's, it's all hinging on that one guy. So he's like, I think that because what you just said and what Karina said on the immigration stuff, I think he's throwing it out there because it has to be spoken about. It's got to be something to talk about. But I think like I said, I think his Obamacare issue is going to be infrastructure. And he's going to try to get that thing passed by raising taxes. I mean, he's definitely going to have to push that through.
But the question has to be, does infrastructure get you elected? Obamacare didn't get anybody elected. Like under Obama's presidency, Democrats lost 1,000 elections at the state and party level, right?
I agree, but he passed Obamacare, and I think Obama was just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to pass this.
Well, I'm sorry, Obamacare has been a disaster. Like I'm just going to put it out there, right? As someone,
I just think that immigration, I think it ties into all of this. And if you think about, our demographics and
right.
the aging, the boomers are getting older. And the irony, of course, is that, it's going to be young immigrants that are funding their benefit. The
Right.
immigrants they don't want here. And so it ties into everything. So I would have loved to see him, he gave a really prominent shout out to the AAPI community. We've been going through, we've faced 4 years of abuse from Trump and his people, the Hispanic community, and this is an issue that, immigration is something that obviously the Hispanic community cares a lot about. So I just would have liked to see him talk about it, earlier on in the speech instead of doing it as an afterthought.
Yeah, there's a lot to break down. I also think there's this misperceived notion that the Latino community doesn't care about immigration reform because, you have all this. I think it's the heart of the community. It might not be the brain of the community right now. Because I do think like leading with the jobs and
courage.
prosperity. Yeah. Or right. But I tend to, I know it was Uncle Joe at his finest at the top. He's really good when he's talking about jobs and saving
the White
middle
House
class.
Immigration policy team failed us all tonight. They failed America. They failed everybody.
Well, let me make the point. Yeah, let me make the point because I've let the three of you have your takes. Give me like 45 seconds to have my take, and then we can jump in. But so I do think like all these speeches are long. They become campaign. You lose the momentum after 20 minutes. It just so if you don't get them in, the first 20 minutes are what everyone.
Yeah.
That's his policy. Everything else is just like checklist items. So when you get to like the immigration section, what was really obviously telling is there's 23,000 kids being held on the border by the U.S. government. And I say they are held. I mean, you can say HHS, they're in care, but come on. I mean, those aren't, those are like, those are detained. They're centers that detain children. I mean, let's be real. I mean, there's plenty of recorded incidents of kids facing abuse in those type of HHS centers. So the facts are that 23,000 kids are still being held by the U.S. government. And the president of the United States doesn't even acknowledge that tonight. He just kind of goes into the same like immigration, blah, blah, blah. We'll do this piecemeal and root causes. Everyone's fleeing hurricanes and earthquakes. The other thing that he did mention that I tell this all the time, another root cause of all this is actual U.S. policy in the region for more than 100 years. But it's always like, it's never our problem, right? It's always the poor Central Americans. It's their problem. And it's really hard to frame this debate when you still have 23,000 kids being detained, unaccompanied in this country. And you don't even, he acknowledged other parts when he was talking about gun rights or, I thought the George Floyd section for like a white man who's like in his 70s was actually pretty woke, for someone like that. Like Uncle Joe is trying. But the immigration debate, and I actually agree with you, Pablo, it's like it has become the thing that no one really wants to like address. And in the end, you can say what you want about Trump and what he's done to the community, but it's an easier way to, like, the Trump administration actually did a pretty effective job in winning the immigration debate. And Democrats,
it was an immigration presidency.
Yeah, exactly. Democrats still are using these like centrist neoliberal policies from the Clinton era to sound like they're tough, and they're just getting their ass kicked on immigration. And this was another example. What that immigration section was pitiful. Pitiful.
And yes, I will say you're right. Yeah, Trump, he won the immigration debate. But again, there's that irony that that base of boomers that really bought into that, they're going to rely on, they're going to need these young immigrants to fund their benefits.
Right. And Biden could have said that. I don't understand why it's so easy to say that. It actually falls into his point about prosperity and jobs and making America like coming back. Like, why not look at like you need immigrants now to save this country? It's so like I get it, you get it, we all get it.
But I think
I don't understand.
I
Yeah,
think
go ahead.
to your point, Julio, I think you said it best. It's like Trump, because he's not a politician and he wasn't, and I think he just has a disdain for immigrants, period. So
Racism's, a lot of racism.
Yeah, he came in
and he is a politician.
But wait, let me. He came
in.
He came in with his racist, thoughts and beliefs towards immigrants, and he was like, F it, I'm going to just do this, and I don't care, because he knows, to your point, that Republicans and Democrats will always use the immigration issue as a talking point to try to win votes and never really do anything. They just kick the can down the road. Trump just had hatred in his heart, I think, and he was like, and he had Miller,
hatred in his heart,
and Stephen Miller, and
Miller, and also the fact that this is the first American generation where there is social decline for
it's easy
the
to
white
blame somebody.
Yeah.
So he had all of that working for him.
Do you guys want to hear Tim Scott?
I kind of
no. Yeah, go ahead.
If we want, go ahead. Let's watch it for a couple minutes.
Let's see what he says. Not to interrupt, Karina. Let's just see what he says.
Americans, no matter how we voted, this was the pitch.
This is going to be the immigration speech. Just watch. This is going to be an immigration speech and a half.
We need policies and progress that brings us closer together. But 3 months in, the actions of the president and his party are pulling us further and further apart. I won't waste your time with finger pointing or partisan bickering. You can get that on TV anytime.
You can get that from Donald Trump, the guy that's back for 4 years.
About common sense and common ground. About this feeling that our nation is sliding off its shared foundation and how we move forward together. Growing up, I never dreamed I would be standing here tonight. When I was a kid, my parents divorced. My mother, my brother, and I moved in with my grandparents.
I knew I'd be here tonight.
3 of us, sharing one bedroom. I was disillusioned and angry, and I nearly failed out of school. But I was blessed. First, with a praying mama. And let me say this, to the single mothers out there who are working their tails off, working hard, trying to make the ends meet, wondering if it's worth it, you can bet it is. God bless.
Bet it is, unless you're an immigrant.
And then
I have a totally different message from you that I'll get to in a minute.
John Moniz. And finally, with a string of opportunities that are only possible here
through immigrants doing the hard work,
this past
so
year,
we can have
I've watched
cheap
COVID
vegetables.
attack every rung of the ladder that helped me up.
Except immigrants, because I don't know what's going on.
Let's listen to his speech.
Too early.
I want to hear what he says.
Have gone under. Becoming a Christian transformed my life, but for months, too many churches were shut down. Most of all, I'm sad that millions of kids have lost a year of learning when they could not afford to lose a single day. Locking vulnerable kids out of the classroom is locking adults out of the future.
In cages.
Our public schools should have reopened months ago. Other countries
like the cages.
Private and religious schools did. Science has shown for months
because they're smaller.
That schools are safe. But too often, powerful grown-ups set science aside.
Powerful grown-ups.
Like
what?
Were left behind. The clearest case I've seen for school choice in our lifetimes, because we know that education is the closest thing to magic in America. Last year, under Republican leadership, we passed 5 bipartisan COVID packages. Congress supported our schools, our hospitals, saved our economy, and funded Operation Warp Speed, delivering vaccines in record time.
Yeah,
all 5 bills got 90.
That would have been an easy
90 votes in the Senate.
Right.
Common sense.
I agree, Karina. You're right. It could have been totally easy.
In February, Republicans told President Biden,
I'm with you.
We wanted to keep working together to finish this fight. But Democrats wanted to go it alone. They spent almost $2 trillion on a partisan bill that the White House bragged was the most liberal bill in American history. Only 1% went to vaccinations, no requirement to reopen schools promptly. COVID brought Congress together 5 times. This administration pushed us apart. Another issue that should unite us is infrastructure. Republicans support everything you think of when you think of infrastructure. Roads, bridges, ports, airports, waterways, high-speed broadband. We're in for all of that. But again, Democrats want a partisan wish list. They won't even build bridges to build bridges. Less than 6% of the president's plan goes to roads and bridges. It's a liberal wish list of big government waste, plus the biggest job-killing tax hikes in a generation. Experts say when all is said and done, it would lower wages of the average American worker and shrink our economy. Tonight, we also heard about a so-called family plan, even more taxing, even more spending, to put Washington even more in the middle of your life, from the cradle to college. The beauty of the American dream is that families get to define it for themselves. We should be expanding opportunities and options for all families, not throwing money at certain issues because Democrats think they know best. Infrastructure spending that shrinks our economy is not common sense. Weakening our southern borders and creating a crisis is not compassionate. The president is also abandoning principles he's held for decades. Now he says your tax dollars should fund abortions. He's laying groundwork to pack the Supreme Court. This is not common ground. Nowhere do we need common ground more desperately than in our discussions of race. I have experienced the pain of discrimination. I know what it feels like to be pulled over for no reason, to be followed around the store while I'm shopping. I remember every morning at the kitchen table, my grandfather would open the newspaper and read it, I thought. But later I realized he had never learned to read it. He just wanted to set the right example. I've also experienced a different kind of intolerance. I get called Uncle Tom and the N-word by progressives, by liberals. Wow. Just last week, a national newspaper suggested my family's poverty was actually privilege because a relative owned land generations before my time. Believe me, I know firsthand, our healing is not finished. In 2015, after the shooting of Walter Scott, I wrote a bill to fund body cameras. Last year, after the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, I built an even bigger police reform proposal. But my Democratic colleagues blocked it. I extended an olive branch. I offered amendments, but Democrats used a filibuster to block the debate from even happening. My friends across the aisle seemed to want the issue more than they wanted a solution. But I'm still working. I'm hopeful.
Hey, it sounds like immigration to Republicans.
When America comes together, we've made tremendous progress, but powerful forces want to pull us apart. 100 years ago, kids in classrooms were taught the color of their skin was their most important characteristic. And if they looked a certain way, they were inferior. Today, kids are being taught that the color of their skin defines them again. And if they look a certain way, they're an oppressor. From colleges to corporations to our culture, people are making money and gaining power by pretending we haven't made any
Did they roll
progress
him out
at
to
all.
defend
By
white
doubling down on the
grievance?
division.
Is that what I'm hearing right here?
Yes.
So hard to hear.
Wow.
You know this stuff is wrong.
Sucks
Yes.
to be
Hear me
you, Tim.
clearly.
What?
America is not a
Wow.
racist country.
What a
It's
spokesperson.
backwards to fight
That's what you call a
discrimination
team player,
with
folks.
different types of
Team player.
discrimination. And it's wrong to try to use our painful past to dishonestly shut down debates in the present. I'm an African American who's voted in the South my entire life. I take
And
voting
just
rights
defended white
personally.
grievance
Republicans
on national
support
TV.
making it
Oh
easier
my
to
God.
vote and harder to cheat. and so do the voters.
Wow.
Big majorities of Americans support early voting, and big majorities support voter ID, including African Americans and Hispanics. Common
No, we
sense
don't.
No, we don't.
Don't speak for us,
But
buddy.
today, this conversation has
Hell
collapsed.
no. Get little
The state of
Marco up there
Georgia
to do that.
passed a
Are you
law
kidding?
that expands early voting, preserves no excuse mail-in voting, and despite what the president claimed, did not reduce election day hours. If you actually read this law, it's mainstream. It will be easier to vote early in Georgia than in Democrat-run New York. But the left doesn't want you to know that. They want people
Are you
virtue
hearing this?
signaling
This is
by
the most-
yelling about a law.
This is the
they
most
haven't
ridiculous
even
thing
read.
I've ever heard.
Fact checkers have called out the White House for misstatements. The president absurdly claims that this is worse than Jim Crow. What is going on here? I'll tell you.
Tell us about white
Washington
grievance again,
power grab.
Senator.
This misplaced outrage is supposed to justify Democrats' new sweeping bill that would take over elections for all 50 states. It would send public funds to political campaigns you disagree with and make the bipartisan Federal Elections Commission partisan. This is not about civil rights or our racial past. It's about rigging elections in the future. And no, the same filibuster that President Obama and President Biden praised when they were senators, the same filibuster.
Oh, what happened?
Oh, we're good.
No. Yeah. I think
Well,
they,
I
I
thought
think they
Tim
cut him
Scott
off.
did a
It just
good
went off
job.
on its own.
I think he
They
did a
cut
good
him off.
job.
They cut him off. They're like, that's
Job
it.
openings are rebounding.
Oh, wait.
So why do we feel so divided,
All right.
anxious? A nation with so much cause for hope should not feel so heavy laden. A president who promised to bring us together should not be pushing agendas that tear us apart. The American
Trump
family
happen?
deserves better.
Like, did
And
Trump
we
happen?
know what better looks like. Just before
Did he
COVID,
actually happen?
we had the
Or was
most
I dreaming
inclusive
that?
economy in my lifetime.
Why would a dog
the
called
lowest
Mabel, and did
unemployment
Donald
rate
Trump
ever
be
recorded for
president?
African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians, and a 70-year
Don't bring us
annuity
into this,
for
buddy.
women. Wages were, hear me, wages were growing
I'm
faster
telling you,
at
no.
the bottom
I
than
can't
at
hear
the
you.
top. The bottom 25% saw their wages go up faster than the top 25%. That happened because Republicans focused on expanding opportunity for all Americans. In addition to that, we passed opportunity zones, criminal justice reform. We fought the drug epidemic, rebuilt our military, and cut taxes for working families and single moms like the one that raised me. Our best future will not come from Washington schemes or socialist dreams. It will come from you, the American people. Black,
Wow.
Hispanic.
Wow,
white,
they
and
really
Asian,
went above and
Republican,
beyond to
and
get this guy.
Democrat.
Washington
Brave
dreams and
police
socialist
officers
schemes.
in
I'm
black
talking you.
neighborhoods. We are not
That's a good line.
We are family.
Yeah, that is a good line.
We are all in this together, and
For what
we
you-
get to live in
for
the
who you
greatest
represent.
country on earth.
Do you guys think he's going to be a Saturday Night Live skit?
Where my grandfather,
No,
in his
I think he's
94
done a.
years,
I mean,
saw
for what he
his
needs to do. I
family
mean, I think
go
he's done a
from
pretty effective
cotton
job,
to
like
Congress
speaking to the
in
Republican
one
Party.
lifetime. So I am more than hopeful. I am confident that our finest hour is yet to come. Original sin is never the end of the story, not in our souls and not for our nation. The
Damn,
story is
dude.
It's
I
a
gotta
great
buy.
point,
redemption.
but I don't know if he's the right one to
I
make
am
it.
standing here because my
Original
mom has
sin
prayed me
is
through
not the
some
end
really
of the
tough
story.
times.
Dude, he's calling out
I believe our
Obama,
nation
man.
has succeeded the same way. Because
you remember
generations
what
of
Obama said the
Americans
original
in
sin
their
of
own
America is?
ways have asked for grace,
Yeah.
and God has supplied
Slavery.
it. So I will close with a word from a worship song that really helped me through this past year of COVID. The music is new,
Shut,
but the
shut,
words
shut,
draw
shut,
from
shut.
Scripture. May the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May his presence go before you and behind you and beside you. In your weeping and your rejoicing, he is for you. May his favor be upon our nation for 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children.
What are you talking about, Don Jr.?
And God bless the United States of America.
Wow.
Dude, he didn't dunk on immigrants.
He didn't, but I think he did a good job. I think one thing he came from a place of acknowledging that we are divided. It almost seemed like Biden didn't want to do that, and he was like, well, this is just the way it's going to be.
But I think Biden said
that was one approach.
I think Biden recently said, and I agree with him on, it's like he didn't come in to say, I'm going to unite all the Republicans and Democrats in Congress. I mean, most of his plans, I think, from the polling suggest that, the majority of Americans like his initiatives, what he's trying to do. And these Republicans can try to say to us that it's about bringing them together. They don't want to bring anyone together. I mean, they didn't do that for 4 years. They did everything they wanted to do. I'm pretty, to Pablo's point, it was like, he was literally, when he was protecting, like, he's literally saying, he was out there protecting white privilege, man.
He was selling white grievance.
Yes. Like,
also, I mean,
we got it bad.
White, you don't have to.
But
you
really,
don't have to be. We say it all the time. Terrell Starr said it all the time on In the Thick. It's like, you don't have to be white to practice white supremacy, and there's allies of white supremacy, and in all our communities, there's people who want to strive for that American whiteness that is dangled in front of us all the time, and that's always going to be a very effective Republican strategy, because you just need enough. You don't need everyone. You just need enough.
You see that, Julio?
Dunking on this.
Yeah.
Was that McCarthy?
Yeah.
It's going to be, they're going to play the game. Everything's about, they're going to say, like, but I do think, Senator Scott, for what he needed to do.
Yeah, he did do what he needed to do.
Was very effective, and,
he did a great job.
Yeah, but can we go back to somebody who's actually in charge? Like, can we go back to somebody who's actually in charge? Joe Biden. Like, we don't have an election this year. We do not have an election in November. And yet he was unwilling. I can't get over it. It's like, it's the same shit every time. He's unwilling to push for immigration reform or to do anything meaningful on immigration when there's not a midterm, right? That means next year is going to be horrific for immigrants, right? Horrific, And my question is, when are they going to turn the hippie off? When are they going to stop taking their cues from like Los Angelinos with poster boards and start getting some real legislative terrorists to go and make a bill and force it down everybody's throat? And if that means giving people a ton of money for border reform or border security, great. But we have to get something in return on the side of relief. Tim Scott just humiliated himself in front of everybody by defending white grievance and the Trump movement on television. But he's not in charge. He doesn't matter, right?
You're saying we need a progressive Stephen Miller for immigration reform.
I mean, Stephen Miller never actually built anything. He just broke things, And so on some level, yes, if somebody wants to come in and break ICE, that would be what Stephen Miller did, right? Like, but to protect immigrants, make all ICE agents work from home or something like that. Yeah, that would be a Stephen Miller move. But what we're talking about is creating citizens at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. So listen, I'm reaching my bedtime because I'm an old dude, but I just want to thank you all for watching the speeches.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. And I'll let. Sorry for the Facebook goof up earlier.
Oh no, that's fine.
We'll figure it out, and I'm gonna get in some chat groups to figure out what I did wrong. And next time,
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll do it next time.
This is good how we put the stream, and it was cool, and it was good to see Karina and you, and it's a dry run. It happens, but I do have to go. So
all right, well, we're ended on that.